Okay, so tonight we're going to be talking about the healing properties of aloe and its primary constituents. One of the main ones being acemannan. And so I'm not sure what it shows on the name there, but this is actually Matt's story. I think it shows HR because he's the main login for that. But those of you that aren't aware, this is Matt's story. But I'll be going through the healing properties of aloe and the main constituents of it, which are the healing sugars, primarily the acemannan. Okay, so let's dive right in. So aloe vera itself is a pretty amazing mixture of all kinds of different nutrients for the body. You have, polysaccharides, vitamins, minerals, amino acids. The list goes on. But the main things that we're really excited about, if you want to call it that, for aloe vera is what they call the polysaccharide fractions of it. And some people refer to them as galactomannans or beta glucomannans. Um, I mean, you can just refer to them as polysaccharides, but of course, the saccharide implying it being a sugar, but these would be like the healing sugars that you hear about. You all may have heard of glycoproteins and some of the healing sugars out there, like N-acetylnurmenic acid that you would find in raw eggs or something like colostrum. Galact, the Manos is the one we're going to cover tonight, but there's certainly plenty of other ones that we can go over. Now, what is Acemannan itself? So this is the Wikipedia definition of what it is. Um, and you can see they're referring to it as a mucopolysaccharide that you would find in the leaves of the aloe vera plant. And as it's saying here and giving reference to, it's been shown in laboratory analysis and studies and so forth to have immunostimulating properties, immunomodulating properties, really, antiviral, antibacterial, and of course, everyone's pretty, I think, aware of the gastrointestinal properties that aloe has. I mean, a lot of people have used that throughout the years for minor stomach issues and so forth. So the acemannan is like the beta 1,4 mannose. It's part of the whole matrix, if you will, of the mannose that you would find in alum. Um, but it's a long chain sugar, so it's like that polysaccharide, and it interjects itself into all the cell membranes. So its function at the cellular level is actually quite dynamic. And the interesting thing, and the reason why you're definitely going to learn something new on the call, because the research on aloe is still, there's a ton of research on aloe vera plant. Everyone kind of gets why it's good. But the healing sugars and the acemannan specifically, the body of research is just now starting to build. And we'll cover why maybe there wasn't as much research in the past on it as there maybe could have been. Um, now, so why now? Why are we talking about Acemannan specifically and aloe products now? I mean, aloe's been around forever, right? Well, traditionally the problem with the aloe vera products that you get a lot of times is getting the key active ingredient, getting those polysaccharides preserved. They're not really concentrated in the aloe plant, and this is why, if those of you listening, if you have aloe plants at home, maybe you grow it yourself and you use it on sunburns and cuts and stuff like that. That's fantastic. But most of you are calling in tonight because you want to figure out what kind of clinical implication does it have for maybe some of the more advanced or more serious chronic illness that you're actually working with in your practice. So the problem with the polysaccharides is that they're not particularly stable, and they can be very easily destroyed both in the harvesting process and the concentration process of actually turning it into a raw material for supplementation. But recently there's been kind of a new patented process that allows for really the ultimate preservation of the acemannan and the polysaccharides of the aloe plant at a level that we've just never seen before. They're actually able to use the technology now with a centrifuge out in the field. So literally, when instead of maybe what happened in the past, or even what does still happen now, where the plant is either being cut by hand or machine threshed, even worse, and then thrown on a truck and then driven into a processing plant and then processed from there. In that span of time, you lose a lot of these delicate healing sugars. So this new processing of the Acemannan is allowing for a higher level than we've really ever been able to deliver to the body. And so it's actually an exciting time to really start getting into using it. Now, how does the body use the mannose specifically? Some of you, I'm not going to go into super boring biochemistry, but it's good to understand exactly, at a general level, like what is the body actually doing with this stuff. So, the mannose is used in the body in all kinds of cellular communication, and specifically in the synthesis or modulation of glycoproteins. And so, those of you that aren't as familiar with that term, again, a glycoprotein is when you have something like a sugar combining with a protein molecule. And there's all kinds of functions that these have in the body, but they do need to be regulated, modulated, synthesized to have optimal health. Now, commonly in the body, you can convert glucose that you've gotten from your food and from the breakdown of that can be converted to mannose by enzymes if you're not eating any mannose. So, it was assumed for a long time, up until, honestly, not that long ago, that glycoprotein biosynthesis was entirely done by glucose, and that the glucose would break down the mannose that the body needed, and then it wasn't necessary to need aloe vera because your body would just make it. It would just turn glucose into mannose. Now, but what they're starting to realize is, this is from Journal of Glycobiology back in '98, is that these monosaccharides and polysaccharides really are like a complex biochemical deal that have more functions that they even imagined, much like how we view amino acids and nucleic acids. And of course, of these, mono and polysaccharides, the mannose really is like one of the most important. But again, I think why people weren't looking at it as heavily is because it was just assumed that your body could make it from glucose, and there was no real need to go any further with that. So, how does your body actually get to the Acemannan when you consume it? Or when it needs it, I should say as well. You have bacteria in your small intestine that break down those polysaccharides, those, long chain sugars. And then you have little, pumps basically that push that mannose right into your bloodstream. Okay, so this number one bullet is really like the ideal way that you would want to get the mannose, because you're not going through the second bullet, which is basically like a glucose conversion into mannose. If the cells realize that they don't have enough mannose circulating, then they're going to kind of break it down out of the glucose in the body, and that does require calcium to work, and it's a bit of an interplay. And you also have the mannose binding lectins in the body that can kind of pull those molecules in as well. But the main thing that we really want is this first one. That what you want is to be eating mannose as part of your diet and have it directly broken down in the small intestine and pumped right into the bloodstream, because that's where it's going to have the impact directly, in the body where you have these pathogens circulating as well. And so it's starting to reveal why, maybe we actually do want to supplement with this and not just rely on this glucose conversion. So what exactly does the Acemannan do in the body? Okay, so you can see here that polysaccharides really, they look at them as like a bridge between pathogens, foreign proteins like a virus particle, and the macrophage, cells in your body. And so the polysaccharides essentially help to signal to your macrophage to function at a higher level. And essentially, and this is how the mannose and Acemannan get that moniker of being an immunomodulator, and that they actually work to help your macrophage function at a better level. Okay, so activating those receptor sites on the macrophage is really like a key when you have boosting this kind of immune response, and especially when you have people that have chronic immune disorders, where the macrophage is really depleted or just not working properly or so forth. Activating the receptors, which is what these sugars can do, is a key thing. And interestingly, the polysaccharides actually can protect the bone marrow from damage from various things, various chemicals and drugs and so forth. And so if you have that kind of thing going on in your clinic, yet another good reason that you'd want to deliver those allopolysaccharides directly to the body. So you guys might be going great. I hear you, but let's see some science behind this. So like I said, the science specifically for Acemannan really is just starting to emerge, because I, when you go back to what I said earlier about the processing of it and how getting it in concentration wasn't exactly that impressive, honestly, up until pretty recent history. There is plenty of research with just like general aloe gels, or a preparation of aloe and so forth. But some of these the new research that's happening, uh, now that they finally have concentrated sources of Acemannan, you're starting to see some really cool stuff. And so this is actually an in vivo study, and you can see that the groups that were treated with Acemannan had higher bone mineral density and a faster bone healing compared with untreated controls. This was actually done at a like a dental uh, university, basically in Thailand, and they're looking at that. And what they're suggesting with the data is that the activate, kind of like if any of you were tuned in and listened to the talk before on where we were talking about deer antler and how deer antler can actually stimulate um, the proliferation of all kinds of different like osteoblasts and chondrocytes and things like that at the extracellular matrix. It does appear from the research that we're seeing now that the Acemannan actually has the same kind of impact as well. Um, these two, I just put the studies up here for you, and certainly, if you guys want to read more into them yourselves, you can. Chris and myself, we can always, or Corey, we can always pop those over to you. But what these are really just showing you, this study and the next one, essentially, are that, and again, these are fairly recent studies, is that yes, indeed, there is some kind of macrophage activation from the Acemannan, and now they're starting to look at, oh, okay, wow, we didn't really even know that before, but now we're starting to not only prove it, but then really understand at the immunopharmacological level, what is actually happening, so that they can, go further with it. Um, Unfortunately, their version of going further is probably going to be, trying to create some patented drug compound out of it. But the good news is that we're starting to understand that yes, indeed, maybe the anecdotal experience that people have had of it having antiviral, antibacterial properties, that there's actually good science emerging to prove why that is. Um, so this is actually a study done in Italy, and this is actually with the aloe arborescens species of the aloe plant. But what they did was they were looking at control groups of just chemotherapy, and then groups that had using the aloe uh, at the same time as the group, along with chemotherapy, basically. And what they found was that, I mean, the efficacy, the improvement rates, for the groups that had the aloe was significantly better. And I'm sure a lot of you on the line are kind of like, well, yeah, that's a no brainer. If we're using, something like the aloe, of course it's going to be better than just doing chemotherapy by itself. But the good news, excuse me, is that at a mainstream science level, they're starting to recognize it as well. So you're not, kind of out there in the dark, as a natural practitioner, and wondering, I guess, if people are experiencing the same type of results in their practice. So really, what's the take home? I want to keep this kind of short and sweet. We're starting this format a little bit later in the evening, to hopefully accommodate you guys on the West Coast a little bit better. But I want to keep it short for you so you can, wrap up your day, especially for those of you that are on Central Time as well. So, what is the take home here? What do you really need to know? Um, the really cool thing with Acemannan is that it actually will interject itself into all the cell membranes, and so this increases the fluidity and permeability of the membranes, which allow toxins to flow out and nutrients to flow in more easily. There's other things that do this as well. Any of you that have been around for a while, maybe you've heard Dr. Marshall talk about um, phosphatidylethanolamine, which is a fatty acid, but the phosphatidylethanolamine being key to cell membrane fluidity, which is, the more fluid and flexible the membranes are, they're not as hard, the virus can't penetrate as easily. And this is the real gripe against hydrogenated oils and these trans fats and all that, is that that's part of what decreases the fluidity, and increases basically the ability for the cell to be entered by a virus. So this is one of those countermeasures, if you will, for the influx of the trans fats and hydrogenated oils and all that junk that people are getting, in addition to all the other stuff that they do. But the bottom line here is that these concentrated allofractions, so like the acemannan is what we're talking about, the beta 1,4 mannose. The bottom line here is that it enhances the function of your entire immune system. It's going to help to detoxify the body. It is going to help to promote the repair of tissues. You already saw that with the dental study. That really translates to any tissue in your body, not just in your mouth. Um, but as far as promoting the repair of all kinds of tissue by stimulating those osteoblasts and the chondrocytes and so forth. Um, and it does help with the elimination of invading pathogens in a couple of different ways by that macrophage activation that you saw, but then also it does have that ability to make it harder for bacteria to actually cling to the tissue. There's some other nutrients that do that as well. So, let's say that you're using acemannan in your practice, and you see that maybe you do kinesiology and you see that that's testing really well for them, or it's testing okay, but it's not enough to lock in something by itself. Another thing you can look at are some of these nutrients that make it more slippery, so the bacteria can't actually stick to the lining of the intestine. Um, Things like elderberry extract, some of these new high concentration cranberry extracts, even make it so that the bacteria and so forth can't stick to the mucosal membrane. And it makes it so you just kind of flush them out, and you don't even get that going in the first place. But the acemannan, these mucopolysaccharides do the same thing as well. Now, the acemannan directly is helping to increase the body's own production of things like of immune stimulating fractions like interferon, interleukins, helping to increase the number of T cells at the spleen. um, Acemannan itself is going to be phenomenal for anything going on in the head, face, neck, sinus, really any pathogen that's on the mucous membrane. But a take home for you guys clinically is that you're going to want to maybe start slow with people in the beginning, because of all the things that we've been talking about. It can elicit a detox, especially people that have had long-standing chronic things going on, because it's going to start to boost that interaction of the macrophage, going to enhance the receptors of that. So now the body's like, oh, okay, actually, I can actually take on these viruses and so forth. So it is one that the person does need to be prepped and ready for, and obviously you have to use your clinical wisdom for. But the reason why we wanted to do kind of just a whole separate thing on this specifically was that it is really like a new tool in the arsenal, and not just a tool that we're talking about, but one that the scientific community at large, for the first time really ever, is seeing acemannan in a concentration that they can actually see like, oh wow, this is like a pretty powerful immunomodulating substance. Let's see. I hear cutting in and out. Hopefully it's only you. I apologize if I am cutting in and out. Um, and certainly, if those of you that aren't on the webinar, you're actually just calling in, so you're not seeing the slides or anything like that. I will find out tomorrow when I go in and see if I can actually release the slides to you, so that you can, have them to read at your own leisure as well. So let's see here. Just one quickie announcement before I open it up for the questions. Uh, those of you that have been getting product from Premier for a bit, you know that hopefully, if you don't, I'm about to tell you, you know, we ran out of the source of that classic pollen, which is like the bee pollen that we carried, the actual like granules of bee pollen. We ran out of that. We're working on the sourcing of that as well, but we have brought on a new one, it's going to be called, I believe, camellia pollen. But this product is actually bee pollen granules sourced from bees that feed on like fields of green tea, like, feed in flats where they grow green tea. So it has its own particular properties to it. But it is, granular bee pollen. You would still use it for the same purposes that we talked about before, as far as, you can combine it with the honey and make that kind of like paste for liver health and things like that. But I just want to give you the heads up because I kind of just came into stock like today. Um, and then, you know, so I just want to make sure you heard about that basically. And then also too, um, I have all the paperwork. I've been on the road, but I have the paperwork back at my desk. I'll be in tomorrow and I'll confirm everything. So I just wanted to remind you guys, those of you that have done the QRA level 1 course, maybe you did it recently with us in Newport Beach or maybe even further back. We are going to be having that QRA level 2 in Santa Barbara. It's going to be a great location right there on the beach. I highly encourage you to shut the practice down for a day on that Friday. Come up. Well, it'll be the same kind of format. We'll have a half day on Friday, and then we'll do Saturday and Sunday. Beautiful location. If you came to the one in Newport and that was your first one, this is really going to be all hands on. There's a lot of lecturing that has to take place in the level 1 right now, but level 2, it's going to be a ton of hands on and a ton of case studies, like cases up front. We're going to put the mud on each other. It's going to be real hands on. So if you've been, kind of practicing and now you're ready to kick it up a level, then you definitely want to come to the QRA level 2, um, that's going to be taking place in Santa Barbara. Let's see. So I had a question here about, can you address the polysaccharides in conjunction with gut dysbiosis and carb digestion? Sure. In the gut, probably the bulk of aloe vera research that you find, besides the ones just, proving what is in the plant, as far as all the phytonutrients that exist in it, probably the most stuff you're going to see is actually on the gut, as far as the aloe's ability to stimulate the macrophage directly along the lining of the bowel, and act as a healing sugar directly in on the lining of the bowel. So much in the same way that you may have, any of you that have looked at colostrum at all, or if you were on that the one that we did, we kind of broke down some of the healing factors of colostrum. The aloe is very similar when it comes to gut dysbiosis, as far as like something that is going to activate the immune properties along the bowel and help to eliminate bacteria, obviously bad bacteria from the bowel that are going to be involved with the gut dysbiosis, whatever it may be. Because, I mean, obviously, you could have all kinds of pathogens, right? You could have bacteria, parasite, virus, whatever. So the polysaccharides have a direct activity for all the reasons actually we just covered, is how it would work in that one. As far as carb digestion goes, um, I don't have much on that, to be honest with you. I would have to dig in more and get back to you on that one. So I'll answer the person directly that asked that one. The level two seminar, by the way, is going to be April 6th and 7th. So that would be like and actually, I guess with the Friday added on, it would actually be, what am I talking about here? Yeah, it would be like the 5th, 6th, and 7th. So the 5th will be a half day. It'll start about 1 and it'll go to about 7. Then Friday and Saturday will be like a 10 to 6 day. It's going to be at a great little resort up there in Santa Barbara. Like I said, I highly encourage you to stay up there with us. But if not, those of you that want to pop back down to Woodland Hills or LA or that kind of thing, you can. Um, let's see. I'm just right now. I'm going to go through a couple of the questions that have popped up on the actual like written questions here. If we're taking the Acemannan sublingually, how is it going to affect the gut as much? Excellent question. The Acemannan, and will have an effect all the way down to the bladder, but it's going to be like a degradative, ah, degrading effect, I should say, as you go further down, the entire canal. So where you're going to see the biggest impact with this is, like I said, it's going to be the head, face, neck, sinus, things like that. But in the gut, you're still going to get that activity because, like I was saying in the beginning of the seminar, if you're eating mannose, then you have enzymes in your small intestine that directly are like they have a name, but it's like they're directly there hanging out waiting for mannose. And so if it's present, it'll take it and literally pump it into the bloodstream, which will then recirculate, into the bowel through the normal biochemical processes. So it'll still get into the gut and still affect it. But again, to get, if that was your primary focus was the gut, you've got to understand that the doses would just need to be to ultimately get progressively higher so that you could saturate it. But here's the deal. If you've got a bunch of sinus stuff going on, or you've got a bunch of dental issues and then you've got dental infections and so forth, the mannose is going to go where it needs to go first. So what you may experience is that you need to be on this for a longer period of time because you've got concurrent gut and stuff in the mouth and so forth. Okay, so the next question is, any comment on use for vaginal infections, enema for colon healing? How long is it stable in a water solution? Um, the stability in a water solution is not going to be that great. And when I say that, I mean like, certainly no more than like half an hour. So, anecdotally, there's really no studies on this, but then again, there's not that many studies on coffee enemas either. But anecdotally, I have seen on the web, and I have talked to a pretty fair amount of practitioners that have used the alum, the Acemannan, like an aloe, solution as a douche vaginally and in enemas. But again, the use would be anecdotal. But if you are going to do that, again, you would just want to, like make it and use it because the stability is not going to be that great in water. Okay. Um, Approximately how much aloe should be administered if your client has a chronic issue? So the typical, kind of one shot dose, if you will, of Acemannan is roughly 24 milligrams, 24, 25 milligrams. So if someone's chronically ill and you're still in the beginning phases of working with them, then you're going to want to go slow, maybe just, one cap a day even. You can build up, and Dr. Marshall has done special protocols with people that are a bit further down the chain where he's having them do even one an hour. Okay. So, it could build up to that. But just think about what we talked about in the beginning of the call. If they've been chronically ill for a while, the immune system has been suppressed, and now you're giving something that's going to directly modulate the function of the macrophage, that's great, but it could create a lot of die off and detox. And so, if kidney and lymph isn't supported, pH isn't supported, and so forth, you could have issues. So let's just use it, in the context of the wisdom that you guys, kind of already know on that one. Um, let's see. The next question was, does the aloe or mannose have benefit to increase all levels of immunoglobulin production in the gut as well? Um, no, there's different kinds of immunoglobulins and different things and different things that stimulate those. So the aloe is one healing sugar. And so, you may have heard Dr. Marshall talk about trying to get all the healing sugars in your diet, right? So, which is why for a long time he was a big fan of the kefir, because you could kind of get like four of the healing, excuse me, the healing sugars out of that, um, as long as you had, acetic acid in your diet, basically, vinegar and so forth. But um, the another one of those healing sugars is the N-acetylnurminic acid, right? And so our favorite source of that is something like colostrum. And so this is why, you want to take a multi-pronged approach with something like the Acemannan or aloe, mannose, um, and you want to use things like the colostrum and so forth if you can, like if they're not a vegan or something like that. But it doesn't increase all levels of everything. It does work on certain things, but it does have a very broad spectrum activity. But I would say to get the complete spectrum, you would want to use this with other things as well. I talked about maybe like the cranberry or elderberry extract, if you had a really tough case, possibly the colostrum, some things like that. Let's see. The next question was, please comment on the difference between aloe mannan and aloe detox. Okay, so now I'm going to step out of talking about the this particular compound. Okay, now we're talking about an actual product that we produce. Okay, so any of the claims inherent for acemannan as a substance do not apply directly when we're talking about a product that PRL produces. Okay, I just want to make that clear. So the alomannan product that we produce um, does have the actual whole powder, so you get all the little synergists and cofactors that come with it, but it does include a standardized extract of the acemannan. The aloe detox product is a combination product done in the style of the formula put forth by Father Romano Zago, where you have alcohol, honey, and aloe from the arborescens species of that. So this would be like a tincture drink that the person would take if they had sort of ongoing immune challenges. So the difference between the two is one is like a standardized extract from the plant. The other one is like the whole liquid. And so, could both of them be used concurrently? Yes. Could both of them be used for kind of the same thing on one level? Yes. Um, but now let's say, and actually, the study that I showed a little bit earlier from Italy, that's actually really they're referring to like that Father Zago kind of formulation and what they're using. So you could absolutely be using both of these at the same time. For those of you that are QRA practitioners, we're always just going to defer to what they test for. But those of you that maybe aren't doing the QRA and you're just using these prophylactically in the practice, what we would say is, maybe you would reserve the aloe detox once, because the thing is, the aloe detox again has that raw honey and the alcohol. So just from that alone, that's going to probably take out certain of your clients that aren't going to be able to use that. Maybe they're on a low sugar diet, maybe they can't handle the alcohol, you name it. So then go to the aloe. Perhaps on the flip side of that, you have someone that has read the Father Romano Zago books and is more interested in that, the activity that they've read about for that formula. That's something that they could use. Now, someone asked, can this product replace ambertose? So, if those of you that aren't familiar with ambertose, that's a kind of like the Manatech company. They produced a mannose powder um, to try to get the healing sugars into the body. So the aloe mannan product that we produce could be like an exact replacement and then some, if that makes sense. And what I mean by that is that actually this is, to date anyways, in the entire industry of nutrition, the extract that we're using, or the standardized Acemannan that we're using, is the highest source that there is available. So I don't know if Ambertos has actually beefed up to this one or not, but certainly the formulation that I saw, 5 years ago, it would be even better than that. um, there's a question: is it better to take it sublingually, or is it better to swallow the capsules? um, it kind of depends on what you're trying to target. If you're really trying to keep things focused in the mouth and the gum tissue and so forth, it's definitely going to be better sublingually. Um, if you were trying to target it deeper down, theoretically you could swallow the capsules, but they're not really enteric capsules, so they're going to break down in the stomach anyways. Um, there, I personally myself, with just about any herb that you can tolerate the taste of, I think it's better to take sublingually, unless you're trying to target it further down the chain. So, something like the probiotics, obviously you're swallowing those to get, deeper down the tract. Um, but otherwise, I mean, if you can tolerate the taste, to me, the uptake of herbs in general is going to be better, done buccally or sublingually or so forth. Alrighty. Let's see. If anyone, let's see, I'm going to go ahead and unmute. Peggy, I see your hand up. Um, Shoot me a message if you still need to ask the question, or if yours got answered already. Um, let's see. Confused about the difference between Acemannan and Allomannan since they're both new. Oh, so the Allomannan product that Premier produces, uh, in addition to like a whole aloe leaf bit, contains an Acemannan extract. What we were talking about, earlier through this whole slideshow, is just research on the compound Acemannan. So, we're not claiming that our product does any of this stuff. We're just saying there is this new compound called Acemannan. But our product name itself that would contain that standardized extract of the Acemannan is called Allomannan FX. Okay. And if any of you, they talked about a little bit on the webinar, conference that was there last week. Um, Dr. Marshall said that I could go ahead and extend that special. So if any of you either didn't hear about it or whatever, if you wanted to try our Allomannan FX product, you can get it, buy six, get one free all day tomorrow. We'll still honor that special kind of from last week through tomorrow. And so, just if any of you guys, are interested in trying that out, or that kind of thing. Let's see. So I don't see any other hands raised. Um, so I'm gonna real quick. I'm gonna open it up just in case there's anyone that called in, but doesn't actually, doesn't have it open on their computer and can't type the question or raise their hand or whatever. So if everyone could just make sure that you've like star muted. It's either star or pound muted the background of your phone, so that when I unmute everybody, it doesn't, we don't have a bunch of background noise. And then just go ahead and ask your question if you got it. And then otherwise, if there's no other questions, we'll call it for a night. So let me just unmute it real quick here. Huh.
Muted.
Yeah. Uh, okay, I'm sorry. I'm gonna have to go ahead and mute everyone again because it won't let me unmute everyone at the same time. And then as I was unmuting, some people, you're still getting like massive feedback on that. So I apologize if you're just calling in and you don't have the mechanism to ask the question on the computer. Um, but I'll be in the office, and so will Chris. All day tomorrow, and we can certainly answer your questions then. You can also email me. My email is matt at prlabs.com, and I'll certainly answer any questions you guys have as soon as I get that. And then, like I said, I'm going to find out tomorrow. Is it okay to turn over the slides? So if any of you couldn't log on and actually read the slides while we were going through it, I'll send them. If I get the approval, I'll send them to you straight away. So I guess there's really no other questions. So thank you guys very much for joining in. I hope it was a useful thing for you, and we'll talk to you later. Alrighty, take care.